All right, let's dive into the world of Conor McGregor and his comeback, what it all means. This 2025 return, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, isn't it? Going beyond just the headlines and hype to the business, the psychology, just what it costs to be Conor McGregor.
Absolutely, and we're lucky enough to have some insights from the Octagon Chronicles podcast. They talked to Liam O'Connell,
Yeah.
who knew McGregor like way back, before all this when he was like tearing it up in Cage
It's
Warriors.
Cage Warriors, right? For those maybe not as familiar, it's like a proving ground, right?
Yeah.
A lot of UK and Irish MMA fighters. McGregor winning both the featherweight and lightweight titles there, I mean, that kind of showed he was special.
Yeah, and it's amazing how fast he went from like those Cage Warriors fights to, just global stardom. Like remember his UFC debut, Marcus Brimage, first round knockout, 67 seconds. I mean, that's when the world knew his name.
It was more than just the win, though, wasn't it? I mean, you could see right from the start, the walkout music, the way he carried himself. He understood, the power of putting on a show, right? He wasn't just there to fight. He was there to entertain.
Yeah, and entertain he did. And the trash talk, the custom suits, the whole Notorious persona,
Mm.
he drew people in, people who'd never even watched MMA before,
Mm.
right? It became like an event, a spectacle.
It's pretty impressive, actually, his business savvy. I mean, he turned himself into, a brand, a global phenomenon, right? And suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of the McGregor pie.
But,
Yeah.
that level of fame, there's a cost. The spotlight can burn as brightly as it shines.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the scrutiny after that loss to Nate Diaz. I mean, it was a wake-up call. Showed, he wasn't invincible.
Yeah, the Diaz fight, I mean, it exposed some holes in his game, especially when it came to stamina. I mean, the blueprint was out there.
Yeah, and then the Khabib fight, talk about clash of personality. I mean, that was personal,
Mm-hmm.
fueled by trash talk and animosity.
You could almost say that, McGregor's reliance on psychological warfare, it kind of backfired. Khabib, he wasn't fazed by it, It almost felt like it motivated him even more.
Yeah, and those Poirier fights, especially that second one with the leg break, I mean, horrific. And that kind of injury, that doesn't just affect your body, it impacts you mentally. How do you come back from that? Not just, physically, but mentally.
That's the big question, right? This comeback, it's uncharted territory in a lot of ways. He's not just fighting, an opponent in the octagon. He's fighting, the doubts, the whispers, the shadow of his former self.
Yeah, and let's not forget the lifestyle, the high-profile parties, the legal issues, the constant media circus. I mean, that's got to be a distraction, even for someone as mentally tough as McGregor.
I mean, you can't really quantify the impact, but it does make you wonder, didn't it? Like,
Right.
Did it all take a toll? Was it a factor in those losses? We know the Michael Chandler fight fell through. Injuries are just part of the game. But now there's this talk about him coming back against Dan Hooker. But honestly, the opponent almost feels irrelevant here, right? Like, This
Yeah.
is about Conor proving something to himself, showing he can still compete at that level after everything.
Yeah, yeah. What's really fascinating is that we have this unique perspective from Liam O'Connell, right? He trained McGregor in those early days. He knows him, probably better than most. And on the Octagon Chronicles podcast, he had this advice for McGregor. It really stuck with me. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, forget the money, forget the fame, forget proving anyone wrong. You come back because you love to fight. You come back because you want to be in that octagon. You want to feel that rush again.
Yeah.
And there's a real depth to that.
Yeah, it cuts to the core, doesn't it? What this comeback could be about, right? A rediscovery, the passion, the hunger, the love of the fight. I mean, without that, it's just a spectacle. But with it, who knows what he's capable of.
We've talked about the incredible rise, the business savvy, the setbacks, the cost of fame. But what does it all mean for his legacy? Can he recapture that magic in the octagon? We'll dive into that next.
It's interesting, though, right? How the sport itself has changed since McGregor was really dominant. It's a different landscape now in MMA.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's constantly evolving, right? New fighters, new styles. You can't just rely on, what worked 5 years ago.
Exactly, and that's got to be a challenge for him, right? Coming back, can he adapt? Can he evolve his game to, match this current generation of fighters?
Yeah, I mean, even just think about how fighters, approach the mental game now. Everyone's seen what McGregor does, right? The trash talk, the mind games. It's not a secret weapon anymore.
It's true. His opponents are studying him, dissecting, those tactics, they're going to be ready for it, this time around.
So how does he counter that? Does he double down on the persona, or does he try to find, a new approach?
Liam O'Connell, he actually had some thoughts on this. He really emphasized focusing on the technical aspects, getting back to the fundamentals.
Yeah, it was like he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, don't get lost in the hype, the noise. Remember why you started fighting in the first place, It's about skill, technique, heart. And that was really powerful.
It is. It's like a reminder to strip away the distractions and get back to basics.
For sure.
And that's where his experience comes in, right? McGregor's been in the biggest fights. He's felt that pressure. He's dealt with the adversity. I mean, that's invaluable experience.
Yeah, you can't teach that, can you?
No, you can't. But there's also this question of, his fighting style. Can he still rely on that, explosive power, the quick knockouts? That defined him early on.
Right.
And again, Liam O'Connell's insights here are really fascinating. He talked about how McGregor's always been a student of the game, right? He's always adapting and refining his technique.
So it's not just about raw power anymore. It's about being smarter, more strategic in the octagon.
Yeah, and I think we've seen glimpses of that evolution, haven't we? In those later fights, the use of more kicks, that focus on grappling. The question is, can he put it all together, at this stage?
It's interesting, too, even thinking about the octagon itself. I mean, it's not just a fighting arena. It's almost like a symbolic battleground,
Yeah.
You step in there and everything changes. The lights, the crowd, the pressure, it intensifies everything.
Absolutely. And McGregor, he's always thrived in that environment, hasn't he? He feeds off that energy, the attention. I mean, it's part of what makes him so, captivating to watch.
But can he recapture that same magic, though?
Yeah.
After everything? I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right?
It really is. I mean, this comeback, it's about more than just winning or losing, isn't it? It's a test of his resilience, his adaptability, his will to prove everyone wrong. And honestly, I think that's what makes it so compelling, We're witnessing a fighter at a crossroads, he's trying to write the final chapter of his story.
It's true. It's like we're all, on the edge of our seats, waiting to see what happens next. Will he rise to the occasion or will he fade away?
Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, right? This comeback, it's going to be a defining moment in his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, what a legacy it's been so far, right?
Yeah.
From Cage Warriors to becoming the biggest name in MMA, I mean, he changed the game. But now he faces, maybe his biggest challenge yet.
This is where we really got to, dive deep into the psychology of it all. We've talked about the physical challenges, the changes in the sport, that need to adapt. But what about the mental side?
Yeah, McGregor's always been known for his, mental strength, that unwavering belief in himself. But can that same mindset carry him through this time?
Liam O'Connell, he mentioned something really interesting in that podcast. He said that McGregor, he needs to find the joy in fighting again.
He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he needs to remember what it felt like to step into the octagon for the first time, that pure love of the fight. If you can tap back into that, the rest will follow.
Powerful, yeah.
Really powerful stuff.
It makes you think, doesn't it, about the difference between fighting for a paycheck, fighting for fame, and fighting for the love of the sport.
Exactly. When you're driven by passion, by that inner fire, it changes everything.
So can he rediscover that? Can he, silence the doubts, the distractions, and reconnect with, that primal instinct to compete?
That's what we're going to be watching for, right? In this comeback. It's not just about, whether he wins or loses. It's about whether he finds that spark again, that love for the fight that, made him a legend.
And that brings us back to, the question we left you with at the end of the last segment. What does this all mean for McGregor's legacy?
Right. We've explored his journey, the highs and lows, the impact he's had, but what will define him, in the end?
Will he be remembered as, that brash, charismatic champion,
Right, yeah.
the one who changed the game, or will he be seen as, someone who couldn't handle the pressure, who let the fame get to him?
This comeback, this is his chance to write that final chapter,
Yeah.
And it's a story that's still being written. We don't know the ending yet.
And that's what makes it so captivating. We're witnessing a fighter at a crossroads, a man trying to reclaim his place in the world.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's think about this. Can Conor McGregor truly rediscover his passion for fighting amidst, the pressure of legacy and expectations?
What would you advise him if you had the chance?
It's a question worth pondering, as we await his return to the octagon. It's funny, we've been talking about this comeback like it's, a sure thing. But there are so many unknowns still, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can look back, we can analyze, speculate about his mindset, even Liam O'Connell's advice, but we're all just observers in the end, aren't we?
He could walk into that octagon a completely different fighter.
Yeah.
More disciplined, more focused, more strategic. Who knows?
He could, or, he could fall back into old habits, get lost in the hype, and then lose sight of, what really matters.
And that's what makes it so compelling, right?
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
And the stakes are high, not just for, his career, but for his legacy, too.
Think about it. I mean, he's already achieved, a level of fame and fortune that most fighters, they just dream of. He's an icon, a global, household name.
So why risk it all? Why step back into the octagon where, the pressure's so intense? Why?
Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about, the money or the fame anymore. Maybe it's about proving something to himself,
Well, maybe it's about that need to compete, to test himself, to see if he can still, hang with the best.
Or maybe, just maybe, it's about rediscovering that love for the fight, like Liam O'Connell said.
It all comes down to that, doesn't it? When you strip away all the layers, the spectacle, the hype, the money, it's about the passion.
The pure passion for the sport, right? The thrill of the battle, the desire to push yourself further than you think you can go.
That's what made Conor McGregor a legend.
Yeah.
And that's what could make him one again.
This whole deep dive into Conor McGregor, it's been an exercise in exploring the unknown, hasn't it? I mean, we looked at his past, we've analyzed his present, and we've speculated about his future.
We talked about his, incredible talent, his business skills, his flaws, his contradictions, all of it.
But in the end, the only person who can really answer the question of, what happens next is Conor McGregor himself.
And that's what's so captivating about it.
Mm.
We're all waiting to see, what he does, what choices he makes, how he defines himself in this new chapter.
Will he embrace the challenge? Will he evolve his game? Will he prove that he's still a force to be reckoned with?
Or will he crumble under the pressure, the distractions, the weight of his own legacy?
We just don't know. But we do have the privilege of watching it all unfold.
So keep your eyes on the octagon, folks, because whatever happens, it's going to be one hell of a ride.
This has been the deep dive, and we'll leave you with this final thought.
Can Conor McGregor truly rediscover his passion for fighting amidst the pressures of legacy and expectation?
Only time will tell.